Dear listeners, we're back with a new story. Get ready for cheating, revenge, and wild relationship drama. The moment Anna called, I knew our evening was slipping away before it had even begun. Her voice sounded faint, as though she was struggling to convince herself she was truly unwell. "Hey, I'm really sorry. I don't think I'll make it tonight," she murmured over the phone, followed by a weak cough. I glanced at my watch, then at the 2 theater tickets on the counter. "What do you mean? You were fine this morning." "I know," she sighed. "I just started feeling off this afternoon. Maybe it's a stomach bug or something." A pause hung in the air between us. We'd been planning this evening for weeks. The theater show wasn't exactly my first choice, but it was something Anna had been excited about. She loved the arts, especially live performances. And yet, there she was, bowing out at the last minute. "Well, I can stay with you," I offered, pacing the living room. "We can watch a movie here or just take it easy. I don't have to go alone." No, you should go. "I don't want you to miss it because of me," she said quickly, almost too quickly. "I'll just be here, resting. We'll do something together soon, okay?" I hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Of course," she replied. "Go, enjoy yourself. I'll be fine." But there was something hollow in her words. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I waited, hoping she might change her mind, but the silence on the other end of the line felt like the closing of a door. "All right," I finally said, though the pit in my stomach didn't share my acceptance. "I'll check on you when I get home." "Okay. Have fun, love." With that, she hung up. And I was left staring at the tickets, wondering how I could possibly enjoy the night without her. The theater lobby was buzzing with excitement when I arrived. Couples milled about, talking animatedly as they waited for the show to start. I couldn't help but feel out of place, holding both tickets in my hand like a fool. There was something uniquely isolating about being in a place filled with people but feeling entirely alone. When I handed over my ticket to the usher, I half expected him to give me a pitying look. But he simply scanned it, smiled, and directed me to my seat. "Just one tonight?" he asked. "Yeah, just one," I mumbled, feeling that familiar sting of disappointment rise again. As I took my seat, I glanced at the empty one beside me. It was absurd, but I almost wished I hadn't come at all. The show hadn't even started yet, and already I wanted to leave. The lights dimmed, and the curtain rose on a grand, elaborately decorated stage. But for all the spectacle, the show was dull. The dialogue was stilted, the plot meandering. It was a historical drama, with too many drawn-out scenes and too little emotional payoff. A story about old political tensions, lost love, and betrayal that somehow failed to stir any real feeling in me. The irony wasn't lost on me. I shifted in my seat, glancing at my phone to see if Anna had texted. Nothing. 2 actors on stage were locked in some impassioned argument, but their words washed over me. I wasn't here. I was still thinking about her, how her voice had sounded distant, how it felt like she'd pulled away from me in more ways than just missing a night out. Halfway through the second act, I considered slipping out the back and leaving early. The plot had dragged on, and I couldn't connect with any of it. Yet, I stayed, hoping the final act would redeem the night. It didn't. When the show finally ended and the audience clapped politely, I couldn't have left fast enough. I didn't bother with the post-show socializing or linger at the theater bar like I might have if Anna had been with me. Instead, I stepped into the cool evening air, eager to get home and check on her. I called her on the way home, but it went straight to voicemail. "Hey, just checking in," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Hope you're feeling better." The show was, well, it wasn't great. But I'll tell you about it later. I'll be home in about 10 minutes. I hung up and slipped my phone back into my pocket, walking faster now. There was something gnawing at me, an unease I couldn't shake. Maybe she was asleep, or maybe she had her phone on silent, but something about it didn't sit right. As I neared our building, I caught sight of the familiar glow of lights from Mr. Smith's apartment next door. He was always up late, watching TV with the volume way too high. I smiled at the thought of the old man, always complaining about the latest news or football match. It was a small comfort, knowing someone was awake at this hour, though I couldn't pinpoint why I needed it. By the time I reached our door, the unease had grown into a quiet alarm. I turned the key and pushed it open, expecting to find the apartment dark and quiet. Instead, the living room light was still on, but the place was empty. "Anna?" I called out, stepping further inside. No response. I walked to the bedroom, finding the bed untouched. My heart picked up pace, but I told myself not to panic. Maybe she was in the bathroom, maybe she'd gone for a walk to get some fresh air. But something in me knew better. I hesitated for a moment, then made my way to Mr. Smith's apartment, my mind racing with thoughts I didn't want to entertain. As I raised my hand to knock, I heard muffled voices inside. My heart raced as I approached Mr. Smith's door, the sounds of laughter and chatter drifting through the thin walls. I hesitated, my hand hovering inches from the door. What if Anna was just visiting? Maybe she needed to borrow something, or maybe Mr. Smith had helped her with a chore she couldn't manage on her own. But that nagging voice in my head wouldn't let me brush aside the growing sense of dread. I knocked, the sound echoing unnaturally in the hallway. After a moment, the door swung open, revealing Mr. Smith, his usually friendly face now wearing an expression of mild surprise. "Ah, hello there," he greeted, his voice warm but slightly too loud, as if he were trying to cover something up. "What brings you here?" "Hey, Mr. Smith. I was just checking on Anna. She wasn't feeling well, and I noticed her car was still here. I thought she might be with you." I tried to keep my tone casual, but I felt the tension tightening in my chest. "Oh, she was just here," he said, a hint of something unreadable in his eyes. "She stopped by for a moment, but I think she headed back home a little while ago. Didn't want to disturb her too much since she's not feeling well, you know." His words hung in the air, each syllable laced with something unsettling. "Are you sure? I just came from our apartment, and it's empty." "Maybe she went for a walk or stepped out to get some air," he suggested, a little too nonchalantly. "She seemed a bit restless. You know how it is." I nodded slowly, but unease settled deeper in my gut. "Right. Well, thanks for letting me know." "Of course. If you see her, tell her I said hello," Mr. Smith called after me, a little too cheerily. As I turned away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I made my way back to our apartment, my mind racing. Anna's absence felt heavy, and the silence in our home amplified the dread clawing at my insides. I tried calling her again, but it went straight to voicemail. "Anna, where are you?" I said, my voice shaky as I left another message. "Please call me back. I'm worried." With my heart pounding, I walked through the apartment again, checking each room as if she might magically appear. "Anna!" I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. This isn't funny. I finally settled on the couch, glancing at the clock. 20 minutes had passed since I'd left Mr. Smith's place, and the knot in my stomach only tightened. And then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. I grabbed it, my heart racing, but it was just a notification from a news app. Frustrated, I tossed it aside, trying to shake off the growing paranoia. Just then, I heard the faint sound of the front door creaking open. I sprang up, racing toward the sound, my heart in my throat. As I rounded the corner, I saw Anna stepping in, her face flushed and hair slightly disheveled, a stark contrast to her usual composed demeanor. "Anna!" I exclaimed, relief flooding through me. "Where have you been?" I was worried. "Hey," she said, her voice a mix of surprise and guilt. I didn't expect you back so soon." I stepped closer, scrutinizing her. "You look different. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she insisted, but there was an edge in her voice. "I just needed to step out for a bit. Get some fresh air." "Fresh air?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. At Mr. Smith's, her eyes flickered with confusion. What do you mean? I swallowed hard, suddenly feeling the weight of the night's events. I knocked on his door earlier, and he said you were there. You were just talking. Anna's expression hardened, and she crossed her arms defensively. I don't have to explain myself to you. I was just talking to him. He's my neighbor. Yeah, but, I took a step back, my mind racing. You could have called me, let me know where you were. I was worried. Worried? About what? She shot back, frustration creeping into her tone. I can take care of myself, but you didn't even text. I snapped, anger flaring. You didn't think to let me know where you were. Maybe I just wanted a moment to myself, she retorted, her voice rising. Is that so wrong? I could feel the tension crackling between us, thick and suffocating. So, you just decided to hang out with Mr. Smith instead of coming home? Is that how it is? Stop making this into something it's not, she yelled, her eyes wide with a mix of indignation and fear. Nothing happened. I told you I wasn't feeling well, and I just wanted to breathe. Breathe? I scoffed. By going next door to talk to him? Why did he seem so evasive when I asked about you? Anna opened her mouth, but no words came out. She stared at me, her expression shifting from anger to something softer. Hurt, maybe? You know what? I said, my voice lower now. I don't even know what to think anymore. Just, let's take a step back. I'm not the one who needs to step back, she replied quietly, her voice trembling. You're the one jumping to conclusions. The air between us felt charged, electric with unresolved tension and bitterness. It was as if the trust that had once anchored us had frayed, leaving only a fragile thread. In the silence that followed, I felt the weight of everything crashing down on me. This wasn't just about one night. It was about the growing distance between us, the things left unsaid, the feelings that festered in the corners of our relationship. I just need some time to think, I said finally, turning away. The realization hit hard, this wasn't just a misunderstanding. Something fundamental had shifted between us. Time. Anna echoed, hurt flashing in her eyes. So that's it? You're just going to walk away? I paused at the threshold, glancing back at her. I don't know what else to do, Anna. I can't keep pretending everything is fine. With that, I stepped out, leaving the door slightly ajar behind me. As I leaned against the wall in the dim hallway, my heart raced, not just with anger, but with a deep-seated fear of what was unraveling between us. I didn't know where this was headed, but the feeling of betrayal hung heavy in the air, a lingering reminder that everything had changed. The following days blurred into a haze of awkward silence and unresolved tension. Every morning, I would wake up beside Anna, the space between us filled with an unspoken distance that felt as vast as an ocean. The bed was once a sanctuary of comfort and warmth, but now it felt cold and foreign. I tried to act normal, to pretend that the world outside our apartment had not been turned upside down. Each morning began with the same routine, would get up, make coffee, and catch a glimpse of her as she stirred awake, but our interactions were reduced to polite exchanges and forced smiles. Good morning, I would say, trying to sound cheerful, as I poured her a cup of coffee. Thanks, she'd reply, her voice flat, her gaze drifting somewhere beyond the kitchen window. It was in those moments that I felt the sharp edge of our fractured trust. I wanted to ask her about Mr. Smith, about everything that had happened, but the words lodged in my throat, heavy with fear and anger. One night, after dinner, I suggested a board game, hoping it would break the tension. Anna nodded, her expression guarded, but I saw a flicker of something, a longing for normalcy, perhaps. We set up the game in silence, and I felt the familiar ache of nostalgia wash over me. This was something we used to do, a ritual that brought us together. Do you remember the last time we played this? I asked, trying to lighten the mood as I shuffled the cards. Yeah, it was a long time ago, Anna said, her eyes not quite meeting mine. Things were different back then, right? I glanced at her, sensing the weight of her words. Do you want to talk about it? About what? The game, she replied, her tone sharp. No, I said, my frustration bubbling to the surface. About everything. About what happened with Mr. Smith. Her expression hardened, and she crossed her arms defensively. I told you before, nothing happened. You're the one making this into something it's not. It's not just about that night, Anna. It's everything, the distance, the secrets. I feel like I don't know you anymore, I admitted, my voice rising with frustration. Maybe that's because you don't trust me, she shot back, her eyes flashing with anger. You're the one who's pushing me away. I paused, the accusation hanging between us. I'm trying to trust you, but how can I when you won't let me in? Maybe I don't feel like sharing every detail of my life with you anymore, she yelled, her voice cracking under the strain. You've turned everything into a fight, and I'm tired of it. The silence that followed felt suffocating. I dropped my gaze, feeling a mix of anger and sadness well up inside me. I don't want to fight either, but I need to understand why things have changed. As the game dragged on, I could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface, the cracks in our relationship widening with each passing moment. I moved my game piece mechanically, trying to focus on the rules rather than the chaos of my thoughts. Your turn, I said quietly, avoiding eye contact. Anna picked up a card, her expression unreadable. I wish we could just go back to how things were. Me too, I said softly. But how? It feels like there's a wall between us now. Maybe you built it, she replied, her voice low but cutting. I'm not the only one to blame. Her words stung, and I felt a wave of frustration rise. I'm trying, Anna. But every time I reach out, it feels like you pull away. Maybe because I'm afraid, she blurted out, tears brimming in her eyes. I'm scared that we're not the same people we were. What if we can't fix this? The admission hung in the air, and I felt my heart sink. I don't want to lose you. But if we can't talk about this, then what are we even doing? I don't know, she cried, dropping the card she had been holding. I don't know how to fix this either. In that moment, the fight drained from me, replaced by an overwhelming sense of despair. I reached across the table, my hand hovering over hers. I just want us to be okay again. Anna looked down at our hands, and for a fleeting second, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, the one who had laughed at silly jokes and whispered sweet nothings in the dark. But the moment passed, and the reality of our situation crashed back in. That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. The anger had ebbed away, replaced by a deep sense of loss. I could feel the gulf between us widening, and I didn't know how to bridge it. I turned on my side, hoping to catch a glimpse of her, but Anna lay facing away from me, her silhouette illuminated by the dim light from the bedside lamp. It was a stark reminder of the distance that had grown between us, a chasm I wasn't sure we could cross. Anna, I whispered, my voice barely above a murmur. Yeah, she replied, her tone flat. I know things are rough right now, but I don't want to give up on us. I don't want to give up either, she said, but her voice carried a weight of uncertainty. I just don't know how to fix this. Neither do I admitted, feeling the tears prick at the corners of my eyes. But I want to try. Please. She shifted slightly, and I could feel her presence beside me, an anchor and a storm all at once. I'll try too, she said finally, though I could hear the hesitation in her voice. It was a small promise, but it felt like a lifeline. We both lay there, caught in the darkness, surrounded by shadows of doubt and fear. As I closed my eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that the battle for our relationship was just beginning. Days turned into weeks, and the chasm between Anna and me seemed to widen despite our efforts. We both wore the weight of unspoken words like heavy coats, trudging through our days with forced smiles and half-hearted conversations. I had hoped our small promises would lead us back to each other, but it felt more like we were trapped in an echo chamber, replaying the same arguments and feelings without resolution. Every morning, the routine felt more mechanical. I'd wake up to find Anna already up, sitting at the kitchen table with a book in her lap, staring blankly at the pages as if she were searching for answers. I'd pour my coffee and steal glances at her, longing to reach out, to bridge the growing gap, but every time I tried, the words caught in my throat. "Morning," I said one day, attempting to break the silence. "Morning," she replied, her eyes still glued to the book. "Any plans for today?" I asked, hoping to spark some conversation. "Just the usual," she said, her voice lacking enthusiasm. "You know, chores and stuff, right?" I replied, feeling the familiar frustration bubble up. "I thought we could do something together. Maybe go for a walk later." "I'm not really in the mood," she said, her tone flat. I nodded, but inside, a storm was brewing. The resentment was building, and I felt like we were two ships passing in the night, completely lost in our own worlds. It was on one of those dreary afternoons, as the rain pattered against the windows, that I reached my breaking point. I had come home early from work, hoping to surprise her, but the sight that greeted me shattered whatever semblance of normalcy I had left. Anna was sitting on the couch, her phone in hand, a flurry of texts flashing across the screen. As I approached, I could see a photo of her laughing with Mr. Smith, a snapshot of a moment that felt so painfully intimate it made my chest tighten. "Anna!" I exclaimed, my voice sharper than I intended. "What's going on?" She looked up, startled, her face going pale as she quickly locked her phone. "It's nothing. Just a funny meme he sent." "Funny meme?" I repeated incredulously. "It looked like you were having a great time. Why are you texting him again?" "I'm allowed to talk to our neighbor, aren't I?" she snapped, her defensiveness flaring. "Sure, but it feels like you're more interested in him than in us." I shot back, anger flooding my veins. "How can I trust you when you're so willing to share laughter with him while we're barely getting by?" "Trust? You keep bringing that up," she cried, rising from the couch, her frustration mirroring my own. "What do you want from me?" "I'm trying to be here, but it's hard when you keep pushing me away." "I'm not pushing you away. I'm trying to understand why you're leaning on him instead of me," I yelled, feeling the weight of my emotions surge. "Maybe because I feel alone," she shouted, her voice echoing in the small room. "You're so focused on what's wrong that you can't see what's right in front of you." "Right in front of me?" I asked incredulously. "What's right in front of me is you texting the man you were just with the other night. Do you really expect me to just sit back and accept that?" "Stop making this about him," she pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. "This is about us. You can't keep blaming him for everything that's wrong in our relationship." "Then what is it about?" I demanded, my heart racing. "Tell me how we fix this if you're not even willing to talk about what's happening." "I don't know," she cried, her voice cracking under the pressure. "I'm lost, and I don't know how to reach you anymore." The silence that followed felt like a chasm opening up beneath us. I stared at her, the woman I once loved fiercely, and now I felt an overwhelming sense of despair. It wasn't just the anger, it was the realization that we were fighting to keep a relationship alive that was already withering away. "I can't do this anymore," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "What do you mean?" Anna asked, confusion and fear flickering across her face. "I mean, I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. I can't watch you laugh with someone else while I feel like a stranger in my own home," I replied, my heart aching with every word. "You're ready to throw everything away just like that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't want to throw it away, but I need to reclaim my life," I said, tears stinging my eyes. "This isn't just about Mr. Smith. It's about how we've drifted apart. I feel like I'm losing myself in this mess." Anna stepped back, her expression shifting from confusion to hurt. "So that's it? You're just going to walk away?" "I don't know what else to do," I admitted, feeling the weight of the decision crashing over me. "I can't keep trying to make something work that feels broken beyond repair." She stood there, her gaze locked on mine, the air thick with tension. "If you walk away now, you might regret it. We can still fix this if you're willing to fight for it." "Maybe we should have fought harder a long time ago," I said, my heart breaking at the thought. "But I can't keep fighting for something that feels one-sided." With those words hanging heavily between us, I turned away, feeling like I was leaving a part of myself behind. As I stepped out of the apartment, I could hear her soft sobs behind me, a sound that echoed my own heartbreak. I walked down the hall, feeling the weight of my decision settle like a heavy shroud around me. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed space to breathe, to think, and to reclaim my sense of self. As I left the building, the rain had intensified, matching the turmoil in my heart. The world outside was drenched, the streets glistening under the streetlights, but I felt no comfort in the storm. I just felt lost, and for the first time in a long time, I was forced to confront the reality of my situation, an uncertain future without Anna. With each step, I felt the hope for a better tomorrow fading, replaced by a bitter acceptance of what had become of us. I was finally choosing to reclaim my life, but the cost was greater than I ever anticipated.